There are battles where the line between enemy and human being blurs, where soldiers see each other not as flags or ideologies, but as young men sent to kill each other by old men who will never face the consequences. Iwo Jima, February 1945. A volcanic island, 8 square miles of black sand and sulfur. An island so small you could walk across it in an hour. An island where 70,000 men fought for 36 days. Where 27,000 Americans were killed or wounded. Where 21,000 Japanese died. Almost every single one. An island that became a graveyard. This is not a story about the flag raising on Mount Suribachi. History has already told that story. This is a story about what happened in the caves beneath that mountain. About an American Marine and a Japanese soldier who became trapped together. Who had every reason to kill each other and every opportunity, but didn't. This is a story about finding humanity in an enemy. About discovering that the man trying to kill you is not so different from yourself. About a friendship that lasted 6 days in a cave and 62 years in memory. His name was Robert Mitchell. He was 19 years old when he landed on Iwo Jima. He was a farm boy from Iowa who had never seen the ocean before joining the Marines. He survived the war. He came home. He got married, raised children, became a grandfather. He lived a long, full life. But he never forgot those 6 days in the cave. He never forgot Takeshi, the enemy who became his friend, the Japanese soldier who saved his life, and whose life he could not save. This is his story. Written in 2007, 62 years after Iwo Jima, when he was 81 years old and dying of heart disease. Written as a confession, an apology, and a memorial. Written because he needed someone to know that beneath the propaganda and the hatred and the violence, there were moments of grace. Moments where humanity survived. Moments where enemies became brothers, if only for a little while. This is the story of the enemy he called friend. This is what war looks like when you're close enough to see the human being inside the uniform. This is the truth about Iwo Jima that no history book will tell you.
My name is Robert James Mitchell. I am 81 years old. I am dying. The doctors say my heart is giving out, which seems fitting somehow. It's been carrying a weight for 62 years that it was never designed to bear. The weight of guilt, the weight of memory, the weight of a promise I couldn't keep. I need to tell you about Takeshi. I don't know his full name. I never did. Just Takeshi, a Japanese soldier I met in a cave on Iwo Jima in February 1945. A man I was supposed to kill. A man who was supposed to kill me. A man who became for 6 impossible days my friend. The only friend I made in the war who I actually wanted to keep. I need to tell you this story before I die because no one else knows it. I never told my wife, never told my children, never told the VA counselors or the other veterans or anyone. I carried it alone for 62 years because I didn't know how to explain it. How do you explain becoming friends with the enemy? How do you explain crying over a Japanese soldier's death when you were trained to celebrate it? How do you explain that the best part of the worst experience of your life involved the man you were sent to kill? You can't. So I didn't. But I'm dying now and the weight is too heavy and I need someone to know. I need someone to understand that war is not what they tell you. It's not glory and honor and righteousness. It's young men killing each other because old men told them to. And sometimes in the brief moments when the killing stops, you realize the man on the other side is just like you, scared, tired, homesick, human. Let me start at the beginning. I grew up on a farm outside Des Moines, Iowa. My family had been farming that land for 3 generations. We grew corn and soybeans. We raised cattle and chickens. It was hard work, but honest work. I thought I would spend my whole life there. Take over the farm when my father got too old. Marry a local girl. Raise kids who would take over from me. It seemed like a good life, a simple life, the only life I wanted. Then December 7th, 1941 happened. Pearl Harbor. I was 16 years old. I remember listening to the radio with my family, my father sitting in his chair, face getting redder and redder, my mother crying, my older brother Jack saying he was going to enlist the next day. Everything changed in that moment. The world I thought I knew, the future I thought I had, it all disappeared. Jack enlisted. He went to Europe. He died at Normandy on D-Day, drowned in the surf before he even made it to the beach. 22 years old. We got the telegram in July 1944. My mother never recovered. She died 2 years later. The doctor said it was pneumonia, but we all knew it was a broken heart. She died of Jack dying. That's what war does. It doesn't just kill soldiers. It kills mothers and fathers and siblings and everyone who loves them. I enlisted 6 months after Jack died. I was 18, old enough. My father begged me not to go. He'd already lost one son. He couldn't bear to lose another, but I went anyway. Not for revenge, not for patriotism, not for any of the grand reasons they put on recruiting posters. I went because I felt guilty. Guilty that Jack had died while I stayed safe on the farm. Guilty that I was alive and he wasn't. Guilty that my parents looked at me and saw the wrong son. I wanted to die too, that's the truth. I joined the Marines hoping I wouldn't come back, hoping I could trade my life for Jack's somehow, hoping that dying would make my parents feel better. Stupid, I know, but I was 18 and grief-stricken and I didn't know what else to do with the guilt. They trained us at Camp Pendleton in California, turned us from farm boys and city kids into Marines, taught us to shoot, to fight hand-to-hand, to follow orders without hesitation, but mostly they taught us to hate. Hate the Japanese, hate the enemy. They showed us propaganda films about Japanese atrocities. They called them animals, subhuman, vermin that needed to be exterminated. They taught us that a good Japanese soldier was a dead Japanese soldier, that killing them wasn't murder, it was pest control. I believed it, or I told myself I did. I had to believe it. How else could I justify what we were about to do? How else could I point a rifle at another human being and pull the trigger? You have to dehumanize them first, turn them into something less than human, something you can kill without guilt. We shipped out in January 1945. Destination, Iwo Jima. We didn't know much about it, just that it was a small island the Japanese were using as an air base to attack our bombers. We needed to take it. We were told it would be easy, 3 days, maybe 4. The Navy had been bombing it for months. The Air Force had been pounding it for weeks. We'd just mop up whatever was left. We landed on February 19, 1945, D-Day. I was in the 5th wave. We hit the beach at 9:30 hours. I remember stepping off the Higgins boat into black volcanic sand that was so soft you sank to your ankles. I remember looking up at Mount Suribachi looming over us like an angry god. I remember the sound of our naval bombardment ending, and then I remember hell opening up. The Japanese had waited for us to land, waited for the beaches to be packed with Marines. Then they opened fire. Machine guns, mortars, artillery. It came from everywhere and nowhere. We couldn't see them. They were in bunkers, in caves, underground. All we could see was the sand exploding around us and Marines dying. I made it off the beach. I don't know how. Men were dying all around me. I saw my platoon sergeant take a mortar round directly. He just disappeared, vaporized. One moment he was there, the next he was red mist. I kept moving. That's all you can do. Keep moving forward or die on the beach. We fought for 5 days straight. 5 days of pushing inland meter by meter. 5 days of Japanese soldiers popping up from spider holes to shoot us in the back. 5 days of flamethrowers and grenades and close quarters combat so intense you could smell the enemy before you saw them. We took Mount Suribachi on the 23rd. They raised the flag on top. It was supposed to be a great victory, but the fighting didn't stop. We still had the whole northern part of the island to take, and that's where the real killing began. The Japanese had built a fortress underground, miles of tunnels and caves. They would attack, then disappear underground before we could kill them, then appear somewhere else and attack again. It was like fighting ghosts. We'd clear a cave, move on, then take fire from the same cave because they'd come back through the tunnels. We started using flamethrowers and explosives to seal the caves, cook them alive or bury them. It was brutal, it was necessary, it was war. On February 28th, 9 days after landing, my squad was ordered to clear a cave system near the northern coast. Intelligence said it was a Japanese command post. We went in with flamethrowers and grenades. It was dark, cramped, full of twisting passages that went deeper into the volcanic rock. We cleared 3 chambers, found supplies, ammunition, a radio, but no Japanese. They had pulled back deeper into the system. We were preparing to follow when we heard it. Explosions behind us. The Japanese had collapsed the entrance, sealed us in. We were trapped. 5 of us. Me, Corporal Johnson, PFC Martinez, Private Williams and Private First Class O'Brien. We had our weapons, some ammunition, a couple canteens of water, and we were buried alive in the dark. Johnson tried the radio. No signal. Too much rock. We tried to dig out, but the cave-in was too extensive. Tons of volcanic rock. It would take days to clear even if we had the tools, which we didn't. We were stuck. We knew it. The question was just how long we would last. Days? Maybe a week if we rationed the water? Then we'd die of thirst in the dark. We explored deeper, looking for another way out. The caves were a maze. Passages leading to dead ends. We marked our path with stones so we wouldn't get lost. We found more supply rooms. Food, water, medical supplies. The Japanese had been planning to hold out here for months. At least we wouldn't die of thirst immediately. That's when we found them. Or they found us. We turned a corner and there they were. 4 Japanese soldiers. We all froze. For a moment, maybe 3 seconds that felt like hours, we just stared at each other. 8 young men in a cave. Both sides armed. Both sides terrified. Both sides knowing that if shooting started in these close quarters, everyone would die. Johnson started to raise his rifle. I heard one of the Japanese soldiers chamber a round. Then another voice, speaking English, accented but clear. "Please, no shooting. We all die." I looked at the speaker. A Japanese soldier, maybe my age, thin, dirty, exhausted. He had his hands slightly raised, rifle pointed at the ground. Behind him 3 other soldiers, all looking ready to fight but also looking terrified, just like us. "We trapped," the English-speaking soldier said. "Entrance collapse. No way out. You trapped too, yes?" Johnson didn't lower his rifle. Neither did the Japanese soldiers. We were at a stalemate. "Yeah," Johnson said finally, "we're trapped." "Then we have problem," the Japanese soldier said. "We shoot. We all die here in dark. Cave too small. Ricochet kill everyone. We not shoot. Maybe we find way out together. Maybe we live." It was insane. Work with the enemy. Help the men we'd been killing for 9 days. Every instinct screamed at us to fight, to kill them, to do what we'd been trained to do. But the logic was inescapable. If we fought in these caves, we all died. If we didn't fight, maybe some of us lived. "How do we know you won't shoot us the moment we lower our guns?" Johnson asked. "How we know same," the soldier replied. "We both scared. We both trapped. We both want live. Maybe we trust? Just little bit?" Johnson looked at us. We were his squad, his responsibility. Williams shook his head. "Don't trust them, Corporal. It's a trick." But Martinez, who had seen the bodies at Tarawa, who had seen what this war had done to everyone, said quietly, "He's right. We fight here. We all die. Maybe we try." Johnson made the decision. He slowly lowered his rifle. "Okay, we try. But you try anything. Anything at all." And deals off. The Japanese soldier translated for his companions. Slowly they lowered their weapons too. For a moment we all just stood there, enemies who had agreed not to be enemies, not knowing what came next. "My name Robert," I said suddenly. I don't know why. Maybe because I needed to humanize the situation. Maybe because if we were going to not kill each other, we should at least know names. "Robert Mitchell, Iowa." The English-speaking soldier looked surprised. Then he bowed slightly. "My name Takeshi Yamamoto, Tokyo." He pointed to his companions. "This hero, Kenji, Yuki." We introduced ourselves. It was surreal, shaking hands with men we'd been trying to kill. But what else could we do? We made camp in a larger chamber, kept our weapons close but not aimed. It was tense at first, no one slept much. We watched them, they watched us, waiting for betrayal. But none came. We were too tired, too scared, too practical. We needed each other. Takeshi and I became the translators, the bridge between the two groups. His English was decent. He'd studied it in school before the war. He'd wanted to be a teacher. Instead, he'd been conscripted, sent to Iwo Jima, told to die for the emperor. He didn't want to die, none of them did. They were just soldiers following orders, same as us. We started exploring together, looking for an exit. Half of us would search while the other half guarded the supplies and rested. We found more tunnels, more dead ends, more evidence that these caves went on for miles. But no way out. The volcanic rock was too thick, the tunnels too collapsed. We were well and truly trapped. Days passed. Day 1, 2, 3. We fell into a routine. We shared food and water, pooling our resources. We took turns on watch, though what we were watching for I don't know. We talked. God, we talked. When you're trapped in the dark with nothing to do but wait to die, you talk. Takeshi told me about his life. He was 21. He'd grown up in Tokyo. His father was a shopkeeper. His mother died when he was 12. He had 2 younger sisters. He'd been studying to be an English teacher when the war started. He was conscripted in 1943. He'd fought in the Philippines before being transferred to Iwo Jima. He'd been on the island for 4 months before we invaded. He'd watched his friends die one by one as we pushed north. He was one of the last survivors of his unit. I told him about Iowa, about the farm, about Jack dying at Normandy, about my parents, about wanting to die because Jack had died, about the guilt that drove me to enlist. You and me, same, he said quietly one night. We were sitting away from the others, sharing a cigarette we'd found in a Japanese supply room. We both want die. We both feel guilty for living. We both sent to die by men who never fight. He was right. We were the same. 2 young men who had been taught to hate each other, who had been sent to kill each other, and who had more in common than we had differences. We'd been born in different countries, spoke different languages, wore different uniforms, but strip all that away, and we were just scared kids who wanted to go home. The others started to relax too. Hiro and Martinez discovered they both loved baseball. Through Takeshi's translation, they spent hours talking about players and games. Kenji was an artist. He drew pictures on the cave walls with charcoal. Williams, who had been most hostile, began to soften when Yuki shared his photos of his wife and baby daughter. He'd been married 3 months before shipping out. He'd never met his daughter. She'd been born while he was on Iwo Jima. We were enemies. We were supposed to hate each other. But you can't hate someone once you know them. Once you've shared food with them, laughed with them, cried with them. Once you've seen their humanity, you can't unsee it. War requires distance. It requires dehumanization. It falls apart when you get too close. On day 4, we heard explosions above us. Fighting. The battle was still raging. We were sitting in a cave, enemies who had become friends, while above us our brothers were killing each other. It was surreal. It was sickening. It made everything feel meaningless. Why we fight? Takeshi asked me that night. You know, I ask why we fight. My officers say for Emperor, for Japan, for honor. But I not understand why my country attack America. Why we fight war we cannot win. Why I sent to die on island I never heard of before war. I don't know, I admitted. They told us we're fighting for freedom, for democracy, to stop Japanese aggression. But that's words, big words that sound important. You want truth? I don't know why we're fighting. Old men made decisions. Young men die for them. That's all war is. We pawns, he said. It was a chess term. He'd taught me some chess using stones in the previous days. Big men play game, we just pieces they sacrifice. Yeah, I agreed. That's exactly what we are. We talked about after the war, if we got out, if we survived. We made plans that we both knew were impossible. I'd go to Iowa, he'd go to Tokyo. Maybe someday when the war was over, when the hatred cooled, we'd meet again. As friends, not enemies. We'd drink together and remember the cave and laugh about how close we came to dying. It was a fantasy. We both knew it, but it gave us something to hope for. Day 5. The water was running low. We'd been rationing, but there were 9 of us. We had maybe 2 more days. After that, dehydration would kill us slowly. We intensified our search for an exit. We split into 3 groups, each exploring different tunnel systems, leaving markers so we could find our way back. My group was me, Takeshi, and O'Brien. We went deep, deeper than we'd gone before. The air got thinner. The passages got narrower. We were about to turn back when we saw it. Light. Just a crack, but definitely light. Natural light from above. We dug frantically. The rock here was looser, more collapsed than intentionally sealed. We worked for hours, moving rocks, widening the crack, and finally, we broke through. A hole barely big enough to squeeze through, but it led up. We could see sky. We went back to tell the others. Everyone was elated. We'd found an exit. We'd survive. We made plans to leave at night when it would be safer. We'd surface, figure out where we were, and then what? We were still enemies, technically. Once we were out of the cave, we'd be on opposite sides again. The truce would end, but no one wanted to talk about that yet. We just wanted out. That night, we prepared to leave. We gathered what supplies we could carry. We said goodbye to the cave that had been our prison and our sanctuary. We were almost at the exit tunnel when we heard it. Voices. American voices. Marines above the cave, probably setting up a position. We froze. If we emerged now, the Marines would see Japanese soldiers and start shooting. Takeshi and his men would be killed instantly. Even if I yelled that they were friendly, even if I tried to explain, in the confusion of combat, explanations don't happen fast enough. You go, Takeshi said quietly. You American, they not shoot you, you go home. What about you? I asked, though I knew the answer. We wait. We hide. Maybe they leave. Maybe we find other way. That's bullshit, I said. If you stay, you die. The Americans are clearing every cave. If they find you, they'll use flamethrowers or seal the entrance. You know that. What choice? He asked. We go up, they shoot us. We stay. Maybe we die. Maybe not. At least it chance. I looked at Johnson. We could tell them. Tell them these guys are prisoners. That they surrendered. Johnson shook his head. No one will believe it. 4 Japanese soldiers in a cave with 5 Marines. They'll think we're compromised. Hell, they might shoot us too for fraternizing with the enemy. He was right. I knew he was right. But I couldn't accept it. I'd spent 6 days with these men. I'd shared food with them, laughed with them, learned their stories. I knew Hiro's sister was getting married in spring. I knew Kenji wanted to paint Mount Fuji someday. I knew Yuki had never held his daughter. They weren't the enemy anymore. They were my friends. There has to be a way, I said desperately. But there wasn't. We all knew it. The moment we left that cave, we were enemies again. The moment we surfaced, the war returned. The truce could only exist in the dark, underground, separate from the rest of the world. In the light, the rules reasserted themselves. And the rules said we had to kill each other. We waited in the tunnel, hoping the Marines would move on, hoping we'd get lucky. But luck had abandoned us long ago. We heard orders being given above. They were preparing to seal the cave. They'd found the entrance we'd emerged from. They were going to seal it with explosives, bury whatever was inside. Go now, Takeshi urged. You go. Tell them cave empty. Tell them you were trapped, you just escape. Save yourself. I'm not leaving you, I said. You must. We already dead. You know this. We dead since we came to Iwo Jima. We dead since war start. This just how it ends. But you can live. You tell our story. You remember we were human. You promise me this. I wanted to refuse. I wanted to find another way, but there was no other way. He was right. They were dead the moment they put on Japanese uniforms and came to this island. And if I stayed, I'd die too, and then no one would know. No one would remember that for 6 days enemies became friends. That humanity survived even if we didn't. I promise, I said, my voice breaking. I'll remember. I'll tell them. I'll make sure they know you weren't monsters. You were just men. Takeshi bowed. Then he did something that broke me. He hugged me. A Japanese soldier hugging an American Marine, enemies embracing like brothers. Thank you, friend, he said. Thank you for seeing me. I hugged him back. I hugged all of them. Hiro, Kenji, Yuki. We all cried. Even Johnson. Even Williams, who'd wanted to kill them on sight. Because we'd lived together for 6 days and you can't share that experience and not care. Then we left. We climbed up through the exit as the charges were being set. We emerged into the night, calling out to identify ourselves as Marines. They almost shot us anyway. We were dirty, unidentifiable, emerging from a Japanese cave. But Johnson's rank and our dog tags saved us. They asked if there was anyone else in the cave. I said no, it was empty. We'd been trapped alone. They didn't believe us at first, but our story held. We'd been buried for 6 days. We'd survived on Japanese supplies. We'd found an exit. We were lucky. That was it. The charges went off 20 minutes later. The cave entrance collapsed. Everything inside was buried. Takeshi, Hiro, Kenji, Yuki, entombed in the volcanic rock. I told myself they died quickly, that the blast killed them instantly. But I don't know that. Maybe they suffocated slowly in the dark. Maybe they knew it was coming and had time to be afraid. I'll never know. That might be worse than knowing. I finished the war on Iwo Jima. We secured the island in mid-March. 26,000 American casualties, 21,000 Japanese killed, only 216 captured alive. The rest died fighting or killed themselves rather than surrender. That's what the war had done to them. Taught them that death was better than dishonor, that surrender was unthinkable, that dying was the only way to be a good soldier. I came home in June 1945. The war in Europe was over. Japan was on the brink. We dropped the atomic bombs in August. Japan surrendered, the war ended, I'd survived. Jack hadn't, Takeshi hadn't, millions hadn't. But I had. I couldn't celebrate. While everyone was dancing in the streets, I was thinking about 4 Japanese soldiers buried in a cave. I was thinking about a friendship that lasted 6 days. I was thinking about men I'd laughed with and cried with and promised to remember. Men whose last names I didn't even know. I went back to Iowa, took over the farm, met a girl named Sarah at a church social. We got married in 1947. Had 3 kids, built a good life, a normal life, the life I thought I'd have before the war. But I was different. The war had changed me. Not just the fighting and the death and the horror, but the cave. Takeshi. The realization that the enemy was human. I never told anyone, how could I? How do you tell your wife you became friends with a Japanese soldier? How do you tell your kids you cried over an enemy's death? In the 1940s and 50s, the Japanese were still the enemy, even after the war, maybe especially after the war. Pearl Harbor was still fresh. The hatred was still there. If I'd told anyone, they'd think I was a traitor, that I'd been compromised, that I'd gone soft. So I carried it alone. For 62 years, I carried the memory of 4 men who should have been my enemies but became my friends. I carried the guilt of surviving while they died. I carried the promise I made to tell their story. And now I'm dying, and I'm finally telling it. I'm finally keeping my promise to Takeshi. I don't know if his family ever found out what happened to him. The Japanese records were terrible. Thousands of soldiers just listed as missing. No body to bury. No grave to visit. Just a name on a memorial somewhere. That's all their families got. Takeshi Yamamoto, Tokyo. He wanted to be a teacher. He had 2 younger sisters. He spoke English because he loved learning. He played chess with stones in a cave. He shared his last cigarette with an enemy. He died buried in volcanic rock on an island he'd never heard of before the war. He was 21 years old, hero, baseball fan, talked about the Tokyo Giants for hours, made Martinez laugh with impressions of famous players, died at 20, Kenji, artist, drew beautiful pictures on cave walls with charcoal. His dream was to paint Mount Fuji at sunrise, died at 19, Yuki, husband and father, had a baby daughter he never met, carried her photo in his helmet, showed it to everyone with such pride, died at 22. They were good men. They were my friends. They were the enemy. All of those things are true. War makes everything complicated. It makes you kill people who could have been your friends. It makes you hate people you would have loved. It takes humanity and turns it into flags and uniforms and sides. And then it acts surprised when we remember that, underneath it all, we're all just people. I wish I'd saved them. I wish I'd found a way. I've spent 62 years wishing that, but I couldn't. The war was bigger than us. The hatred was stronger than our friendship. The rules said we had to be enemies. And in the end, the rules won. But for 6 days in a cave on Iwo Jima, the rules didn't apply. For 6 days, we were just 9 young men trying to survive. For 6 days, nationality didn't matter. Uniforms didn't matter. The war didn't matter. All that mattered was human connection. And that was beautiful. That was the only beautiful thing in that entire terrible war. So this is my confession and my memorial. I became friends with the enemy. I cried when they died. I've mourned them for 62 years. And I don't regret it, not for a second, because they taught me something important. They taught me that the man on the other side isn't evil. He's not a monster. He's just a man, put there by circumstances beyond his control, doing what he's been told to do. Trying to survive, trying to find meaning in meaninglessness. War is the real enemy. Not the soldiers, not the men in the trenches and caves and battlefields, but the system that puts them there, the leaders who order them to fight, the hatred that justifies it, the propaganda that dehumanizes. That's the enemy, and we all serve it, whether we wear American flags or Japanese flags. I'm sorry, Takeshi. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry it took me 62 years to tell your story. I'm sorry the world will never know what a good man you were, but I remember. I've always remembered, and now, finally, I've kept my promise. Your story is told. You existed. You mattered. You were my friend. Rest in peace, brother, on both sides of the war.
Robert James Mitchell died on April 12, 2007, in Des Moines, Iowa. He was 81 years old. This letter was found in a safety deposit box with instructions that it be opened after his death. His family was shocked. They had never known about Takeshi or the cave or any of it. He'd kept it secret for 62 years. His daughter, Margaret, spent months trying to verify the story. She contacted the Department of Defense, the National Archives, veterans groups. She found records of her father's unit being trapped in a cave for 6 days in late February 1945. She found records of the cave being sealed with explosives, but no records of Japanese soldiers being inside. No way to verify the names Takeshi had given. In 2008, she traveled to Japan. Through translators and researchers, she searched for any record of Takeshi Yamamoto, Hiro, Kenji, or Yuki. She found thousands of Yamamotos listed as killed or missing at Iwo Jima. No way to know which one was Takeshi. No way to find his family, if they still existed. No way to tell them that he'd been brave and kind and human until the very end. But she did find something. At the Iwo Jima Memorial in Tokyo, among the thousands of names carved in stone, she found Takeshi Yamamoto. Tokyo. No other details. Just a name and a city. One of 21,000 Japanese who died on that island. One of millions who died in the war. She left flowers at the memorial. She told the guards, through translation, about her father's letter, about the 6 days in the cave, about enemies becoming friends. Some of the guards cried, others looked skeptical, but one old man, a veteran who'd fought in the Pacific, bowed deeply to her. "Thank you," he said in English, "for remembering we were human too." That's the lesson of this story. The lesson Robert learned in that cave and carried for 62 years. The lesson he finally passed on before he died. We are all human, all of us. The soldiers on our side and the soldiers on theirs. The men we're trained to kill are just men. They have families and dreams and fears just like us. They don't want to die any more than we do. War makes us forget that. War requires us to forget that. It trains us to see uniforms instead of faces, to see enemies instead of human beings. Because if we saw the humanity, we couldn't pull the trigger. We couldn't drop the bombs. We couldn't do what war demands. But sometimes, in rare moments, the humanity breaks through. Sometimes enemies meet in caves or battlefield truces or prisoner of war camps, and they remember. They remember that the man they're supposed to hate is just a man, that the flag he wears is just cloth, that the real enemy is the war itself. Robert Mitchell remembered. For 62 years he carried that memory. The memory of 4 Japanese soldiers who should have been his enemies but became his friends, who died because the war demanded it, who were never known as anything but enemy casualties. Until now. Now they're known. Now their story is told. Now the world knows that Takeshi Yamamoto existed, that he was kind and intelligent and human, that he made friends with an enemy, that he died too young in a war he didn't start, that he mattered. This is their memorial. This is their story. This is proof that even in the darkest places, even in the worst wars, humanity survives. Not always, not often, but sometimes, and those times matter. They remind us what we're supposed to be. They remind us that the man on the other side is a mirror, that we're all just young men sent to die by old men who will never face the consequences. If this story moved you, if it changed how you think about war and enemies and humanity, please let us know. Leave a like, subscribe to this channel, and in the comments tell us where in the world you're listening from. Because these stories need to be told. Not the propaganda stories, not the heroic stories, but the human stories. The stories that show us what war really is, and what we lose when we forget that our enemies are human too. Thank you.